Have you ever poured your heart into someone, only to feel like you were left behind the moment they stood tall? You gave everything: love, patience, protection. But now they treat you like a burden, or worse, like you don't even exist. This isn't just about parenting. It's about reclaiming the respect you once had before it quietly slipped away. Picture this. You're planting a tree with all the love in the world. You care for it through storms, droughts, and long nights. You pour your heart into it, watering, protecting, nurturing. But one day, when the tree finally grows tall and strong, its branches begin to strike you. Its roots seem to pull away. And suddenly, the very thing you nurtured now hurts you, ignores you, or makes you feel invisible. How can something you raised with so much sacrifice turn cold and distant? It's a painful truth, but one we need to confront. A child who doesn't respect their mother didn't wake up one morning and choose that. Something happened along the way, something subtle, something you may not have noticed, something life may have silently taught them without your awareness. And if we don't understand how and when it happened, that quiet pain will keep echoing. This message isn't here to cast blame. It's here to bring clarity and, more importantly, to offer a way back to dignity. We'll talk about why giving too much can sometimes lead to receiving so little. We'll dive into a truth that's difficult, but freeing, learning how to stop expecting what may never come, and starting to live for yourself again. This isn't easy to hear, but it could reshape the way you see your relationship with your child. And the power to do that begins by staying with me through this message. Let's pause on this. When a child loses respect for their mother, who is truly at fault? Is it the child, the mother, or is it life itself? It's easy to blame youth, society, or even just human selfishness, but the easy answer rarely leads to the truth. Because respect, real, lasting respect, is not automatic. It's not something guaranteed by biology or title. It's something that's built or slowly lost. And what makes it harder is how quietly it fades. Not in big dramatic moments, but in the small ones. The glances, the silences, the boundaries that were never drawn. The sacrifices made out of love that, over time, lay the quiet groundwork for indifference. No one is born knowing how to be a mother. There's no manual, no finish line. Motherhood is a battlefield, every choice a risk, every action a seed whose results you only see years later. And then, one day, you expect to receive the love, gratitude, and respect you thought you planted. But instead, you're met with silence, with distance, with a child who doesn't listen anymore, who talks back, or worse, acts like you're not even there. And that's when the question hits like a cold wind. When exactly did the respect disappear? Like an old house that once stood proud in strong, time, neglect, and quiet erosion wear it down. At first, the cracks are too small to notice. A missed thank you, a door slammed, a phone call ignored. But eventually, the roof begins to leak. The wood weakens, and the entire structure starts to shake. Earlier, we saw how respect isn't lost in one single moment. It fades quietly, like a house slowly crumbling from within. Now let's take a closer look at how exactly that erosion begins. It doesn't happen with a dramatic argument or a grand betrayal. More often, it begins in silence. Maybe it started the day you ignored that first act of disrespect, telling yourself it was just a phase. Or the moment you gave in to their demands, again and again, never asking for anything in return. Sometimes, It's the quiet fear of losing their affection that pushes you to tolerate words and behaviors you once promised yourself you'd never accept. Marcus Aurelius once said, "We must live according to the nature of things, not the illusions we wish to believe." And the nature of respect is simple, yet profound. It cannot be demanded or forced. It must be earned. Respect grows where there are clear boundaries, where there's consistency, where a quiet kind of dignity stands not from begging for love, but from simply being present, self-assured, and grounded in self-worth. But too many mothers were raised with a painful myth that love must be unconditional, even if it means losing yourself completely. As if motherhood means giving endlessly, sacrificing your voice, your time, your energy without ever expecting anything in return. That's not where true respect comes from. Real respect isn't born from martyrdom. It's born from balance. From giving, yes, but also from knowing your own value. So today, let me ask you, how many times have you allowed yourself to be spoken to with contempt and said nothing? How many times have your hours, your efforts, your kindness been treated as if they meant nothing? How many times have you buried your tears in silence, believing that staying quiet was the only way to keep your child close? If you've believed that waiting patiently will bring back their respect, you've been misled. Respect isn't rebuilt by passively waiting. It's rebuilt through clarity, through courage. And the first step, realizing that even if the walls are cracking, the foundation can still be repaired. You've lived through years of life. You carry wisdom, strength, and experience that no one can take away. Don't let guilt or the fear of being alone keep you from claiming what has always been yours, the right to be respected. This isn't just about your child giving you respect because they should. It's about you recognizing that you deserve it. And when you stand tall, when you draw the line and begin to shift the dynamic, something surprising can happen. Even the most twisted tree can start to straighten its branches, but if respect disappears in the silence of tolerated pain, the next mistake is even trickier to spot. Because at first glance, it doesn't look like a mistake at all. In fact, it looks like love. In the last section, we explored how giving too much without limits can quietly lead to being valued less. Now let's dig into how that dynamic takes root. And why it's so hard to break free from it. It may sound unfair, even contradictory, but for many mothers, this is the hidden reality they face without ever being taught how to escape it. Imagine a beautiful fountain. At first, people stop by with gratitude. They marvel at its beauty. They appreciate the water it provides. But as time passes, something shifts. People no longer pause. They no longer notice. The fountain becomes just another fixture in the background, taken for granted. Its constant flow, once cherished, is now expected. It's only when the water stops that anyone finally looks up and says, "What happened?" That's the painful truth for many mothers. When you give endlessly, always available, always pouring out love, without limits or expectations in return, you begin to disappear in the eyes of those you love most. You may have believed that unconditional love meant sacrificing everything. That to be a good mother, you must give all, ask for nothing, and build your happiness around the happiness of your children. But what happens when those children grow up? What happens when they stop seeing your sacrifice and start assuming it? What happens when decades have passed and you suddenly realize you've spent a lifetime filling everyone else's cup while your own has run dry? You were taught that thinking of yourself was selfish, that your needs didn't matter, that a mother's role is to serve, to support, to give and never to expect. But here's the truth, spoken long ago by Seneca: he who gives without measure receives not gratitude, but demands. And that's what unfolds. When someone is given everything, without boundaries, without effort, without the need to give back, they stop seeing the giver. Not because they're cruel, but because that's how human nature works. What comes too easily fades into the background. What's always there becomes invisible. What's guaranteed turns into entitlement. And so, what began as a beautiful act of love quietly becomes a liability. A rope your child learns to pull when they want something, but forgets about the moment they done single quotes T. So now I ask you, how many times have you said yes when your heart whispered no? How often have you placed your child's well-being above your own, even when it chipped away at your peace? You may have believed that patience, sacrifice, and unconditional giving would eventually be rewarded with respect and gratitude. But now, you're facing a different truth. Where you expected love, there's indifference. Where you hoped for appreciation, there are only demands. In the last section, we uncovered how endless giving can lead not just to being taken for granted, but to emotional invisibility. Now let's explore what it really takes to shift that dynamic. Instead of the deep companionship you once hoped for, what do you receive? Quick visits, hollow conversations, smiles that feel more like routine than love. And now comes one of the hardest Stoic truths. You cannot control how others see you, but you can control how you show up, how you give, how you protect your energy, and how you value yourself. This doesn't mean turning your back on your child. It doesn't mean closing your heart or withholding love. It means restoring balance. Real, healthy love isn't about draining yourself dry. It's not about being endlessly available, no matter how you feel inside. It's about giving from a place of awareness, giving with self-respect, and most of all, giving while never forgetting you matter. So imagine this. What if one day you became just a little less available? What if you started setting boundaries, calmly but firmly? What if, for once, your own well-being came first? At first, yes, there might be confusion. Maybe even resistance or anger. Because people don't adjust easily when they lose something they've always taken for granted. But give it time, and that shift could awaken something deeper, a realization that their mother is not just a provider, not just a quiet background figure, but a person, a whole person with needs, dreams, and a life of her own. The question is, do you dare? Do you dare to stop giving so much that you begin to vanish? Do you dare to love deeply, while also demanding the respect that love deserves? Because here's the truth. You can't rewrite the story of your life if you're still holding the same old pen. If you keep waiting for respect to magically appear, you might spend a lifetime waiting. But the real danger in overgiving, it's not just their indifference. It's what starts to quietly grow within you. Guilt. And that's where everything begins to shift. Guilt doesn't just make you vulnerable, it becomes a trap, a loop. You give, you're disappointed. You feel guilty for not doing more, so you give again and again. Since becoming a mother, guilt has followed you, hasn't it? Guilt for not being perfect. Guilt for past decisions you now question. Guilt for wondering if you ever did enough. But you must understand this. When guilt no longer helps you grow, it becomes a weapon. Sometimes you wield it against yourself. Other times, your child, often without realizing, uses it to keep you in your place, in that role of eternal giver. And when guilt takes over, boundaries fade. self-worth dims, and respect? That becomes something you no longer demand. That's when children again, often unconsciously start to push. Because they sense there are no consequences. Phrases like, "You were never there enough," or "You always made bad decisions," turn into emotional daggers. Words that pierce deeper than they know. Words that make you shrink, doubt yourself, and give more, hoping, still, that one day the scale will finally balance. But deep down, you know, that day never comes. Previously, we uncovered how guilt can trap you in a never-ending cycle of sacrifice and silence. Now it's time to break free from that loop and begin making peace with your past, so you can reclaim your present. Here's the hard truth. Guilt cannot change the past. And even more importantly, it cannot create respect in the present. One of the core teachings of Stoicism is this: we can't control what's behind us, but we can always choose how we respond now. Marcus Aurelius said it best: waste no more time arguing about what a good person should be. Be one. That wisdom applies here too. Stop exhausting yourself trying to defend your past, what you did or didn't do, what you wish you'd handled better. Instead, start showing up today with quiet strength. With the calm, inner knowing that you did the best you could. With the tools you had, in the moments you were given. No, you can't rewrite the past. But you can rewrite how you allow yourself to be treated starting right now. So if guilt has been weighing you down, weakening your voice, shrinking your presence, there's something you can do. The next time your child or your own inner critic brings up what you didn't do or could have done better, respond with one powerful question. What now? Not what if. Not why didn't I, but what do I do with this now? And with that shift, the answer begins to reveal itself. Stop waiting for validation. Stop apologizing for every decision. Start moving forward with the strength of someone who's no longer trapped in debts to the past. Because the truth is, many of the mistakes you blame yourself for, they weren't flaws in your character. They were simply life's way of teaching you, of growing you. You've paid enough. Now, it's time to step forward without shame. Take a moment to reflect on this. Say it to yourself. Write it down if you need to. I owe nothing to the past. Let that become your starting point for everything that follows. Because by now, you understand guilt no longer has a place in your future. But we're not done. In fact, we're about to step into an even deeper truth, one that's harder to face, but also more freeing than anything we've talked about so far. You see, if guilt has been holding you back, there's something else hiding behind it that's even more powerful: the fear of being alone. We're now reaching the fourth step in this journey, and it's time to confront a fear that many mothers carry in silence. It's this fear that convinces you to tolerate too much, to explain away disrespect, to cling to a version of motherhood that's all giving, even when you're no longer seen or valued. Because if you're not the always available mother, then who are you? And if you set boundaries, what if your child pulls away even more? These quiet questions, these whispered doubts, they're what keeps so many mothers locked in imbalance. Previously, we exposed a quiet but powerful fear, the fear of being alone, and how it can lead you to accept far less than you deserve. Now let's explore what that fear is really costing you. Too often, mothers remain in relationships where respect is silently sacrificed, just to avoid the pain of being left behind. But pause for a moment and ask yourself honestly, is what you have real companionship, or just the illusion of it? What does it mean to be accompanied if deep down you feel invisible, emotionally drained, reduced to someone who exists only in the background. The worst kind of loneliness isn't found in an empty room. It's when you're surrounded by people, maybe even your own children, who don't truly see you. Who don't really value you. And here lies one of the most dangerous traps of all. When your fear of losing contact with your child becomes stronger than your desire to be treated with dignity, you begin to slowly bargain away your own worth. You silence yourself when you should speak. You allow treatment you'd never accept from anyone else. And then you convince yourself, at least they're still in my life. But think about it. What does it mean to be in someone's life if you're nothing more than a name in their phone? Someone they call only when they need something. Stoicism teaches us that one of life's greatest mistakes is to emotionally depend on what we cannot control. Marcus Aurelius said, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it." And that interpretation, your estimate, is exactly what you must challenge today. Because the fear of loneliness doesn't actually come from being alone. It comes from a much deeper belief that without certain relationships, your life has no meaning. But that belief is false. The truth is, your worth isn't defined by who keeps you around. It's defined by the quality of the relationships you choose to keep. It's not about surrounding yourself with people at any cost. It's about building connections that offer respect, that reflect value, and that remind you you are still worthy of love, care, and dignity. So take a breath and look honestly at your life. Has the fear of being alone guided your choices? Have you clung to relationships that drain your energy simply because solitude felt unbearable? Now imagine something different. What if you stopped fearing that emptiness and started seeing it as space? What if, instead of holding on to relationships that no longer nourish you, you began pouring that time and energy into your own life, into building new friendships, exploring meaningful activities, and most importantly, cultivating a deeper connection with yourself? Because real strength isn't about enduring emotional neglect just to avoid being alone. Real strength is about learning to enjoy your own company. To know, without question, that you are valuable not because of what you do for others, but simply because you exist. In the previous part, we explored how real strength is found not in avoiding solitude, but in embracing your own worth. Now it's time to talk about the hardest truth of all, the one that sets everything else into perspective. You were not born to live in someone else's shadow. You were not meant to beg for scraps of affection, or to surrender your dignity just to earn a few occasional visits out of guilt. You are here to be valued for who you are, not just for what you do in others' lives. And life? It still has so much to offer you, but only if you stop asking for what is already yours by right. Respect, gratitude, love, these can't be forced. They can't be bargained for. They can only be inspired by someone who fully knows their worth, even when standing alone. If the fear of loneliness has led you to tolerate too much, this next truth cuts even deeper. A child who doesn't respect their mother also doesn't respect themselves. This isn't an excuse for their behavior. It's an insight into it. A child who mocks, ignores, or belittles the very woman who gave them life is not at peace inside. They may be carrying unspoken wounds, resentments, or selfish habits that haven't been healed. But here's what you need to remember. Their inner chaos is not your burden to carry. Many mothers fall into the trap of trying to fix their children, thinking if they just keep loving, forgiving, and giving, it'll heal everything. They justify the disrespect with the belief that they're hurting. That's why they're acting this way. While that may hold truth, it still does not excuse it. Respect is not a favor. It's not a luxury. It's not dependent on their mood, their stress, or their bank account. If an adult child chooses to speak with coldness, if they show no regard for your heart, your time, your presence, that's their choice, not their destiny. And if you keep tolerating it, you only sink deeper into a relationship that robs you, bit by bit, of your own dignity. Over time, you stop expecting anything better. You stop hoping for kind words, thoughtful calls, heartfelt apologies, and that's when the most dangerous lie begins to settle in, that maybe this is all you deserve. But that lie must be shattered. Right here, right now. Ask yourself one question: what kind of example am I setting? Because when you accept this treatment, you're silently teaching your child that it's okay. You're also teaching future generations that a mother's love is infinite, but doesn't need to be returned. That a mother can be taken from endlessly and still keep giving. But this isn't about begging for recognition. It's about standing tall in quiet dignity. It's about knowing deep in your soul that you are worthy of respect. Not just because of what you've done, but because of who you are. Epictetus once said, "The only things we truly own are our own character and our decisions." You can't force your child to change, but you can change how you respond. You can stop waiting. You can reclaim your space. You can show that your love is powerful, but it is not a doormat. If your child struggles with respecting themselves, that is their burden to carry, not yours. Your responsibility is your peace. Previously, we talked about reclaiming your peace by no longer tying your worth to how your child treats you. Now we reach one of the most difficult yet transformative truths of all. Your future depends on what you choose to tolerate and what you choose to change. Your life, your peace, your next chapter. They matter just as much as anyone else's. And if protecting that future means setting boundaries, stepping back, or even letting go, then so be it. Because respect is never begged for, it is inspired. And to inspire it, you must begin by respecting yourself. If you keep waiting, endlessly hoping that your child will change, without you ever changing how you respond, you may end up spending your entire life waiting. Meanwhile, what happens to you? This brings us to the sixth and most painful lesson. Gratitude cannot be demanded, but it can be taught. If your child never learned how to appreciate you, maybe it's because there were never any consequences for not doing so. Close your eyes and picture this. 10 years have passed. You're sitting in the same chair, same house, same thoughts. Your child still treats you like a burden, and you're still holding out hope for a moment of realization, a breakthrough, a heartfelt apology. But it never comes, because people don't change when they're comfortable. They change when they have no choice. They grow when they feel the absence of what they once took for granted. And if you never move, never say enough, never show that your presence is not a guarantee, then why would they ever change? This isn't about cruelty. It isn't about revenge or resentment. It's about teaching through action, not through pleading. Because people learn to value what they fear they might lose, not what is always there. If you've never drawn a line, never made your well-being a priority, never modeled how you deserve to be treated, then how can you expect them to magically figure it out on their own? Think about it. Anyone who's ever lost someone they love knows this. The moment of deepest appreciation often comes after the presence is gone, when there's no longer a way to take it for granted. Love is rarely understood at its full weight until it's no longer within reach. So yes, This path will be uncomfortable. It might feel cold, even unnatural. There will be moments of doubt, but sometimes silence is the loudest teacher. The real question is, do you have the courage to face it? To reclaim your dignity, you must first be willing to sit with the silence, to endure the discomfort, to step into the unknown and do what you've never dared to do. Most mothers never make it to this point, not because they don't want to, but because fear keeps them frozen. They choose the familiarity of imbalance over the uncertainty of change. They choose the known pain over unknown possibility. But here's the thing, fear is temporary. Regret? That can last a lifetime. Gratitude cannot be begged for. It must be earned by absence, by example, and by the quiet strength of someone who finally understands. Love is not servitude. In the last part, we faced a powerful truth. Gratitude can't be forced. It grows only when space is created for it. Now we arrive at the final and most liberating lesson of all, choosing to stop waiting and finally reclaiming your life. Here's the great Stoic truth you must carry forward. You cannot force someone to value what they have, but you can choose how much longer you'll keep sacrificing your peace for nothing in return. And that choice? It's entirely yours. If you've made it this far in this message, it's because something inside you, deep and quiet, knows you can't keep living this way. You've seen what happens when boundaries disappear, respect fades. You've felt the sting of accepting the unacceptable, all because of the fear of being alone. You've carried the weight of guilt that was never yours to begin with. And you've learned, maybe for the first time, that gratitude must be awakened, not demanded. And now we reach the final turning point, the seventh truth. And it's the hardest one of all, to stop waiting for something that may never come, and to begin reclaiming yourself. So ask yourself, how many more years will you sit in that same chair, staring out the window, hoping for change that never arrives? How many more times will you excuse your child's indifference with phrases like, "They're just busy. That's just how life is now. Maybe someday they'll understand"? How many more mornings will you wake up with that quiet, dull ache in your chest, knowing that something is broken, and unsure if it can ever be repaired? Here's a truth many people are too afraid to speak aloud. Not all children change. Not all mature. Not all grow with time. And if your peace, your joy, your identity remain dependent on that someday moment, you risk spending the rest of your life waiting. It's time to make peace with the possibility that recognition may never come. It's time to stop tying your happiness to someone else's behavior. It's time to understand deep in your soul that your story still continues. You are not just a mother. You are not just a background figure in someone else's life. One of the biggest mistakes mothers make is believing that if they stop waiting, it means they're giving up. But letting go is not giving up. Letting go is freedom. Letting go means releasing yourself from the invisible burden you've carried for far too long. To stop waiting doesn't mean you stop loving. It simply means you stop depending. It doesn't mean slamming the door shut. It means no longer standing there, knocking, hoping someone will finally open it. Now ask yourself, and answer truthfully, if you knew without a doubt that your child would never change, never soften, never come closer, what would you do with your life? How would you spend your time? Where would your energy go? What would you create, pursue, or rediscover? In the last section, you were invited to ask the most honest question of all. What would you do with your life if nothing ever changed? Now we step into the answer, because the power to reclaim your peace, your identity, And your dignity begins with one decision. What you finally choose to do for yourself. And that choice is everything. Marcus Aurelius once said, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." And it's true, because if your mind stays trapped in everything you lack, in what you're not receiving, or who isn't showing up for you, you're sentencing yourself to a life of quiet pain. But if you shift your focus onto what you still have, what you can still create, and the relationships that do nourish you, you begin to awaken something new. You begin to truly live, instead of endlessly wait. And when that happens, when you stop placing your self-worth in the hands of someone else, something powerful begins to unfold. The respect you've been longing for may finally arrive. But not because you begged for it, not because you demanded it through tears or silence. It will come because you embodied it. Because when you stop pleading, when you become whole within yourself, when you start enjoying your own company, protecting your peace, and claiming what you deserve with quiet confidence, the world begins to notice. It starts to respond. And yes, maybe your child will notice too. But here's the beautiful shift. By then, it won't hold the same power over you, because you'll have realized that the one person who needed to value you was you all along. If you understand that, if that truth resonates deep in your bones, then you're ready. You're ready for the next step. The eighth and final truth of this journey: the moment where theory turns into action. Because respect doesn't begin when you ask for it. It doesn't begin when you keep giving and hoping to be treated better. Respect begins when you set boundaries. Calmly, clearly, and unapologetically. Setting boundaries doesn't mean you love less. It means you've learned how to love wisely. It's the difference between a mother who is present by choice and one who shows up out of guilt, habit, or silent obligation. It means knowing that you are not required to answer every call. You are not obligated to solve every crisis. And you are not meant to offer yourself endlessly, especially when what you receive in return is silence or coldness. It means knowing how to say no with grace, to say it without guilt, without fear, and without needing to explain yourself. In the last section, we talked about setting boundaries, not as an act of rebellion, but as an act of love. Now, it's time to explore what happens when you truly begin to live those boundaries with clarity, confidence, and peace. It starts with one simple truth. If your child is upset because you're no longer overextending yourself, that is their burden to carry, not yours. So ask yourself honestly, when was the last time you said no without feeling guilty afterward? When was the last time you declined a request, not because you couldn't, but because you simply didn't want to? That's the challenge now. The next time your child acts as if your time, your energy, your emotional labor are theirs by default, pause. Ask yourself, do I actually want to do this? Are they treating me with the respect I deserve? And if the answer is no, then the response is simple. Don't do it. No drama. No anger, no justifications. Just calmly say, I can't, or I don't want to. Yes, it will feel uncomfortable. At first, they may react with frustration. They may try guilt. Or they may go silent, but their reaction? That's not what matters most. What matters is what shifts inside you. Because in that quiet moment, when you say no and realize the sky didn't fall, that the world kept turning, that you are still standing, you awaken a powerful truth. You never needed to beg for love or for approval. What you needed was to respect yourself. Stoicism reminds us that we cannot control others, but we always have the power to control our choices. So here's the choice before you now. Will you keep waiting for others to change? Or will you finally begin changing yourself? Because if you don't draw the line today, tomorrow will look exactly the same. And if tomorrow doesn't change, neither will next year. And before you know it, a whole lifetime passes waiting. You truly willing to spend the rest of your life as a shadow in someone else's story? Only called upon when it's convenient? Only visible when needed? Or will you step forward now, with the dignity of someone who knows exactly what she's worth? By now, you already know what happens when you give endlessly. You've already felt how love without boundaries eventually becomes a burden. And now you see it clearly. Respect doesn't begin when you ask for it. It begins when you start living it. So if you haven't yet drawn that line, ask yourself, what am I still afraid of? Because truly, the only thing standing between you and the life you deserve is the moment you decide to stop waiting and take it. Excuses often wear the mask of wisdom. I don't want to cause conflict. I don't want them to think I'm a bad mother. Maybe it's better to leave things as they are. But is that really wisdom? Or is it fear dressed in silence? In the last part, we asked a hard question. What are you still afraid of? And now we begin to peel back that answer, because behind every excuse, every hesitation, every not yet, there's one thing hiding in plain sight: fear. Fear of discomfort, fear of confrontation, fear of losing the identity you've built around always being the one who says yes, the one who never makes waves, the one who gives and gives and gives. But here's the truth no one tells you. Setting boundaries doesn't just change how others treat you. It changes how you see yourself. And that's terrifying, because it means you can no longer point the finger outward. Not at your child, not at fate, not at society. It means that from this point forward, everything changes only if you choose to change. But if you keep delaying, waiting for a better time, a gentler moment, a perfect signal, you'll be waiting forever. There's no ideal day to say, enough. No voice from the sky will whisper, now's the time to take back your dignity. There's only one moment that matters, the moment you finally decide, you can't keep living this way. And if that moment isn't now, then honestly, when will it be? Because every single day you go without setting a boundary is another day you silently teach your child that it's acceptable to treat you this way. It's not their fault alone. It's a dynamic you've unintentionally allowed. But the good news is, you can also change it. If you decide today that you will no longer tolerate disrespect, that you will no longer justify neglect, that you will no longer be available only when it suits them, something will begin to shift. Yes, there may be pushback. Yes, there may be discomfort, even anger. But don't run from it. Because with that discomfort comes opportunity. The opportunity for your child, maybe for the first time, to face the weight of their choices, to finally see the cost of their actions. But don't expect understanding right away. Don't expect thank yous or sudden apologies. Expect resistance, and stay firm anyway. Don't explain. Don't beg. Don't try to convince them. Prove it with action. Show, through your calm firmness, that you are no longer who you once were. And maybe, just maybe, in time, they will start to see you differently. They may realize their mother is not a limitless well of emotional labor, but a person, a human being, a woman with dignity. And perhaps then, they will begin to respect you. But even if they don't, even if they drift further away, what matters most is this: you will have reclaimed your life, because the most essential respect you'll ever receive isn't from your child, It's from yourself. And if you don't give it to yourself first, no one else ever truly will. If you've made it this far in this message, you already know. This is not a comfortable conversation, but it is a necessary one. Because living your life waiting for respect from someone who never learned how to give it isn't love. It's a quiet kind of prison, and the only way out is a decision only you can make. In the last section, we confronted the quiet prison built by fear, the fear that it's better to give in than risk losing the relationship. But now you see that for what it really is, chains disguised as love. Advice rooted in control, not truth. And every day you remain tied to those chains. Every time you stay silent, shrink, or sacrifice yourself to maintain peace, you lose another piece of yourself in a relationship where you are neither truly seen nor genuinely valued. But you've come too far to go back. Now you understand. Respect is not begged for. It is not something granted out of pity or routine. It is earned by the presence, clarity, and quiet power of someone who knows their worth. And the only person who can begin that shift is you. Not everyone is ready to hear this message. Some will still choose to wait, to hope, to believe that change will come on its own. But not you. You've made it to the end. And that means something inside you already knows. You can't keep living like this. You can't keep justifying, enduring, and shrinking to fit someone else's comfort. Your life cannot be reduced to whatever someone else decides you're worthy of. So if you understand that, truly, then speak it. Say it out loud, or write it down. My respect is not negotiable. This isn't a space for soft illusions. This is a place for those ready to wake up, to rise, to reclaim themselves. Because once you understand your worth, once you stop waiting for permission to live in dignity, you become unstoppable. Too many people are still trapped waiting for love, waiting for gratitude, waiting for respect that may never come. Don't let that be your story. Let this be the turning point. Let this message echo in your choices. Remember, in the end, the only person who decides how the rest of your life will unfold is you. So take a deep breath, lift your head, and walk forward, not in anger, not in fear, but in peace, clarity, and the quiet strength of someone who finally came home to themselves. Your next chapter begins now.